It is the early 1970s. This is James Bond. This is the suave, tuxedo-wearing icon of cinema.
I admire your luck, Mr.
Bond. James Bond.
So, how on earth did he end up running around the Irish countryside in a red diaper and thigh-high leather boots? The answer involves a cancelled Lord of the Rings movie that never happened, a director desperate to recycle his lost ideas, and a floating head that was added to the start of the film because early audiences had absolutely no clue what they were watching.
The gun is good. Peace is evil.
Welcome back to Golden Flicker. Today we are entering the Vortex. The year is 2293. The world is divided into the brutal, irradiated outlands and the secluded technological paradise of the Eternals. The film is Zardoz. Released in 1974, it was intended to be director John Boorman's visionary masterpiece following the commercial success of Deliverance. Instead, it became one of the most polarizing cult films in history. In this video, we are going to dig into the chaotic production wreckage to find the hidden gems. We will uncover how a rejected Tolkien script mutated into a sci-fi fever dream, why Sean Connery drove his own car to set to save money, and why that famous Wizard of Oz twist is actually far more intelligent than you remember. Back in 1974, critics called it a disaster. They laughed at the costumes. But look closer. Beneath the absurdity lies a film that accidentally predicted our modern fears about artificial intelligence, existential apathy, and the end of humanity. To understand why Zardoz looks the way it does, we have to go back to the early 1970s. John Boorman was not planning to make a movie about a floating head. He was deep in preparation for what would have been the cinematic event of the decade, an adaptation of J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings. Boorman and his co-writer, Rospo Pallenberg, spent months immersing themselves in Middle-earth. They were developing new optical effects to portray magic, scouting ancient locations in Ireland, and writing a script that condensed the trilogy into a single film. It was an ambitious, sprawling project, but it was too ambitious for United Artists. The studio balked at the massive budget required to bring hobbits and orcs to life with the technology of the time, and the project collapsed. Boorman was left with a head full of world building, a team ready to shoot, and a deep frustration with the studio system. He pivoted immediately. If he couldn't make a film about outer space, or Middle-earth, he would make a film about inner space. You can see the ghosts of Middle-earth haunting every frame of Zardoz. The film was shot entirely in Ireland's Wicklow County, using the very same landscapes Boorman had scouted for Tolkien's world. The rolling green hills that were meant to be the Shire became the Vortex. The dark, misty lakes became the setting for the Eternals' apathy. Even the narrative structure is a recycled quest. The character of Arthur Frayne, the trickster god who manipulates the hero, is a twisted version of the Merlin or Gandalf archetype, a wizard figure guiding a chosen one through a land of magic. Boorman essentially took his epic fantasy research and filtered it through a low-budget metaphysical lens. He didn't have the money for armies of orcs, so he created the Brutals. He didn't have the budget for a dark tower, so he gave us the Stone Head. This context transforms Zardoz from a random oddity into a fascinating artifact of cinema history. It is the Lord of the Rings that mutated. While Boorman was dealing with the loss of his fantasy epic, Sean Connery was dealing with a crisis of identity. By the early 1970s, Connery was desperate. He had quit the role of James Bond after You Only Live Twice in 1967, driven by boredom and a fear of being typecast. He returned briefly for Diamonds Are Forever in 1971, donating his entire salary to charity, but he had sworn off the tuxedo permanently. The problem was, Hollywood didn't quite know what to do with him without a Walther PPK in his hand. Connery was turning down massive paydays, including a reported $5.5 million to return for Live and Let Die, because he wanted to prioritize serious artistic roles. He was looking for something radical, something that would shatter the Bond image forever. Enter John Boorman. The director originally cast Burt Reynolds for the role of Zed, fresh off their collaboration in Deliverance. However, Reynolds fell ill and had to drop out. With production looming and a gap in the lead role, Boorman turned to Connery. The timing was serendipitous. Connery was finding work offers patchy and was willing to take a significant risk. He agreed to play Zed for $200,000, a fraction of his usual fee and roughly 1/5 of the film's total $1 million budget. Now, we must address the elephant in the room, or rather the red diaper in the room. The costume design of Zardoz is perhaps the single biggest reason the film endures as a meme today, but its origins are purely practical. The costumes were not designed by a high-end sci-fi futurist. They were co-designed by Boorman and his then-wife, Crystal Cruz Boorman, who worked on pure intuition rather than formal training. With the budget tight, they utilised local artisans in Wicklow to handcraft the outfits. The contrast was intentional. The Eternals wear ethereal, flowing gowns that suggest a lack of physical need. They are purely cerebral beings. Zed and the Brutals, however, represent raw animal masculinity. The infamous red bandolier and loincloth were designed to emphasize physical vulnerability and eroticism, a sharp rejection of the high-tech, armored spacesuits common in American sci-fi of the era. Connery reportedly had no major complaints about the costume itself, though he was noted to be uncomfortable with the endless effects reshoots required for the finale. The outfit did exactly what it was supposed to do. It made it impossible to look at Zed and see James Bond. It was a visual reset button on Connery's career. Beyond the costumes, the film's visual style relied heavily on practical effects and optical tricks. Boorman couldn't afford expansive futuristic sets, so he used matte paintings and in-camera effects to expand the world. The flying stonehead itself was a triumph of low-budget ingenuity, utilizing models and forced perspective rather than expensive composites. The cinematography by Jeffrey Unsworth used heavy diffusion and saturated colors to give the film a dreamlike, hazy quality. This wasn't just an aesthetic choice, it was a practical one to mask the limitations of the budget and the fact that they were shooting in existing manor houses rather than built sets. The result is a film that looks ornately psychedelic, feeling more like a stage play or a fever dream than a realistic vision of the future.
The subscribe is good. The troll is evil.
If the budget constraints weren't enough, the production also had to navigate the volatile political reality of 1973 Ireland. Filming took place during the height of the Troubles, a period of intense sectarian conflict. This bled into the production in unexpected and dangerous ways. The exterminators, Zed's band of killers, needed to be armed. However, due to the strict gun control laws enforced because of the conflict, the production faced a near shutdown over the import of prop rifles. The Irish government was understandably nervous about a film crew importing crates of automatic weapons, even if they were fake. Boorman had to negotiate carefully to ensure his futuristic militia could actually carry weapons without triggering a real-world military response. To populate the Outlands, Boorman turned to the local Irish Travellers, a nomadic ethnic group with a distinct heritage. They played the Brutals, adding a layer of gritty, authentic texture to the scenes of the oppressed masses. It was a collision of worlds: Hollywood royalty, a high-concept sci-fi script, and the raw reality of rural Ireland. Amidst this chaos was Charlotte Rampling, cast as the Eternal Consuela. While Connery was trying to escape his Bond persona, Rampling was drawn to the film's poetry and its themes of nature and the body. However, even she had her limits. Reports from the set suggest that while she respected the vision, she was decidedly unimpressed by Connery's costume. The sight of James Bond in a red diaper and a Zapata moustache created a strange tension on set, a mix of high art ambition and visual absurdity that Rampling had to act against with a straight face. This volatile mix of political tension, local casting, and on-set skepticism fueled the film's unique energy. It feels unhinged because, in many ways, the production was unhinged. And now, the golden flicker moment. We have arrived at the pivotal moment of the film, the scene that recontextualizes everything you have seen so far. It is the moment where the madness reveals its method. Throughout the first act, we are led to believe that Zardoz is a god, a levitating stone deity that commands the brutals to kill. But the truth is finally revealed in a recovered memory. Zed recalls raiding a ruined library back in the Outlands. There, amidst the rubble, he didn't just find victims, he found the key to the mystery, a faded children's book. The book is The Wonderful Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum. Zed reads the title. He looks at the name of his god, Zardoz. He realizes the truth. Wizard of Oz. Zardoz is simply the Wizard of Oz, with the middle letters removed. This is the film's golden flicker moment. It is the key that unlocks the entire narrative. Just as in Baum's classic story, the terrifying god is revealed to be a humbug, a human manipulator hiding behind a curtain of technology. The stone head is just a machine, and the god is Arthur Frayne, a bored eternal playing games with genetics. However, Boorman flips the script. In the original Wizard of Oz, Dorothy discovers the truth and eventually returns home to safety. In Zardoz, Zed discovers the truth and uses it to destroy the home. He realizes that his god is a lie, and rather than asking for a way back to Kansas, he tears down the entire system. It is a literary inversion that turns a children's fairy tale into a story of violent liberation. This brings us to the deeper layers of the film. Zardoz is often dismissed as camp, but it is built on a foundation of serious, philosophical, and political anxiety. The structure of the Vortex and the Outlands is a stark critique of colonialism and resource extraction. The Eternals live in a paradise that is sustained by the labour and suffering of the Brutals in the periphery. The Stonehead demands grain, resources, in exchange for guns, a brutal metaphor for neo-colonial, uneven ecological exchange, where the core exploits the fringe. Furthermore, the film tackles the concept of immortality through a Nietzschean lens. The Eternals are the embodiment of Nietzsche's concept of the last man. Humans who have invented happiness but lost their humanity. They are bored, risk-averse, and stagnant. They have achieved a technological utopia, but it has cost them their souls. Zed is the Superman or Ubermensch, the chaotic force introduced to shatter their stagnation and reintroduce death, which Boorman argues gives life its meaning. But here is the final twist in the production story. Audiences in 1974 didn't get any of this. The original theatrical cut of Zardoz opened directly with the image of the floating head and the wasteland, offering zero context. It was a pure mystery. Test audiences were baffled. They couldn't understand if the head was real, magic, or technology. In a panic, Boorman added the prologue featuring Arthur Frayne as a floating head against a black background. In this added scene, Frayne breaks the fourth wall, telling the audience directly, "I am the puppet master. I am the god in the machine." This prologue was a clumsy attempt to fix the movie by explaining the twist before the film even started. Many cinephiles argue that the film plays better without it, preserving the mystery that Boorman originally intended. It is a classic example of a studio and a director losing faith in the audience's ability to navigate a complex puzzle. Zardoz is a film that was born from failure. It rose from the ashes of a cancelled Lord of the Rings adaptation, was fueled by the desperation of an actor trying to kill his own ego, and was stitched together with low-budget effects and high-concept philosophy. It is easy to look at the red diaper and laugh. But when you look at the Vortex, a society of elites isolating themselves from a dying world, ruled by an all-knowing AI called the Tabernacle, it stops looking like a joke and starts looking uncomfortably like a prophecy. Before we leave the Vortex, a special acknowledgement is in order. Much of the visual history of this film, including rare behind-the-scenes photos, has been preserved by the tireless archivists at the Making of Zardoz community. Specifically, we want to tip our red diaper to Roger Mitchell, whose book Zardoz Speaks to You is the ultimate chronicle of this production. Without fans like these keeping the memory alive, films like Zardoz would truly be lost to time. If you discovered something new today, illuminate our day by clicking like and subscribe to Golden Flicker, so you never miss a story from the annals of cinema history. Which film should we explore next? Let us know in the comments.